Okay.
Okay, good morning. We're
Good
on the
morning,
fourth
Rory. How are
dimension
you?
again, and we're at part two with David Hogan, my dad, and looking forward to an exciting chat today. I can see, Dad, you're online there, and I'm just going to start up the video, so hopefully you can see me too. How you
Good
going, Dad?
morning, son. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Good to see your face.
Well, welcome. Here is the first camellia of winter from Melbourne, Victoria.
It's beautiful,
Sitting,
lovely.
sitting, sitting behind this 100-year-old plus camellia tree.
Yeah, it's a beautiful backdrop there. That's your yard at your home there in Melbourne.
Yes, you played at it when you're in it when you were a bit higher than knee high to a grasshopper. You were getting about chest height then and extremely boisterous.
Yeah, I can remember climbing all over that backyard. It's a great space. So you look like you're rugged up. It must be cold down there.
It's bloody cold, son. There's snow in Mount Buller and the wind's coming down, but sun's here. I'm alive. I can see my son. It's a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here too on the south
Is it
coast.
too noisy out here in the wind?
No, I can hear you really well. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So, in our last chat, we started on the quest for the truth, and we ended up going down some very interesting rabbit holes. We covered you working in news media back in the 80s at an iconic newspaper called The Truth. And
Yep.
we started to learn about some colourful characters at that place and some of the very unique experiences that would only be there at the time. There was very loose laws and other things, so lots of different shenanigans could have occurred in this place. But I've been thinking about deep diving into the Truth newspaper itself. But before we do, I'm really keen to kind of understand what led you to work for the Truth. How did this come about? I guess just a bit of a history on how you came to be working in media.
Um, right from the start, I went to a vocational guidance officer like you do in your high school. What are you going to be when you grow up? Kind of thing. I must have been about 12. I'm going to be a singer in a rock and roll band. And these Catholic Marist brothers with their dresses on, I suppose that was my first experience with a cross-dressed man, you know, told me not to be so stupid. And I'm sitting there thinking, who's looking stupid? But I digress. When I left school, there was a lot of employment at the local freezing works, which was an abattoirs, because there was a huge trade between England and New Zealand at the time, as there was here in Australia with frozen meat.
Yep.
And you could earn in 3 months what the average adult would earn in a year. So I wasn't going to get a proper job. I was going to do that and buy amplifiers and fancy clothes. So I get home from, my brother was already a journalist, my brother who was 18 years my senior. And I get home from work one day and my mother said to me, she's got newspaper open out in front of her. She said, you're applying for a job tomorrow, a proper job. I said, I've got one. And she said, you've got an appointment at 10 o'clock. And once again, I'm taking you down there in the taxi and then I'm leaving you to your own devices. She said, this is a no hope is no ending job. It's 6 months seasonal work. You will go in and apply for this. And I said, but I'm going to go from like, 4 times what I was earning down. And she said, I've thought about all this. My answer is you will not be paying board until you complete your apprenticeship and you'll have a proper background and you can do your music stuff as well. So what a great foresight. So I went down
Yes.
there. I was intrigued seeing the printing presses. This was in the technical side of it, not the writing. And I really loved language and everything. I thought, oh, this is good. And so I applied for and got that job as an apprentice. And when I came to Australia, I'd worked at The Age and a few other printing type places. And when the Truth job came available, I was more than qualified.
Yep. That's really exciting. And so,
But that was also when 15, 16, 17-year-old teenagers listen to their parents. Not through being threatening, but kind, beautiful behaviour. Thank you to your grandmother. And saying, well, I know you're going to lose a lot of money here, but you can spend what you earn on your fancy clothes and harmonicas and amplifiers and microphones, and I will support you financially through this thing, and then you'll be set for life. That was great. It was wonderful insight.
It is. It's great forethought. And so I guess just for the background of people that are coming to know your story, this is in the very south of New Zealand, in and around a town called
the
Invercargill.
southernmost city in New Zealand, next stop Antarctica. And small, it was a sick city by their standards, about just over 50,000 people.
Yeah.
But it supported 2 newspapers, weekend sporting editions, and because of the trade with the UK, times were booming. And later on, this is another thing, when the UK joined the EU, which, all that trade dropped off and things changed. But that's, at the time I was there, it was boom times. And when you came to Australia, the union movement was very strong, was affiliated with the Australian one. So when I'd finished my apprenticeship, I was able to go to the union office here in Melbourne and say, I'm looking for work. And they said, what area are you living in? I told them what suburb, and they just looked up their books and they said, there's here, 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 and here. One of those should take you, mate. And off you went.
Yeah, great. That's really good. The opportunities were obviously more abundant back in that time.
We're talking about a different. I'm just doing that not to say it was great. Look, it's great now. It's just different.
Yeah.
But it was so easy then compared to the world I see my grandchildren growing up in. That's why I went down that road.
Yes.
We worked hard for very little. It didn't take much to entertain us. I was still being a smart ass in the course of my apprenticeship because I was achieving my goal of being a rock and roll guy, and my hair went down here. It was long, And you went to an apprentice school in Auckland once a year, and the boss sort of said to me, like the apprenticeships were done in so many thousand hours, which ended up to being about 4.5 years. Like it was so many thousand hours, I forget exactly. Wish some kid with a Dr. Google can sort that out. It's relevant to me. So I'd get up there and I was hauled before apprenticeship committees and that. I'd gone up to the printing school in Auckland, and without bragging, I had done very well. I topped the whole of New Zealand, the kid from the smallest city at the bottom of the South Island.
Oh, well done. Excellent.
Yep. Just through reading on the trains going to and from gigs every night of the week, seeing all these great New Zealand bands live.
Yeah.
And I was staying at at an immigration hostel, which was people from all over the world, a lot of Pacific Islanders, and boy, it was a suburb called Mangere. And at the time, it's probably called Mangere now, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is its correct pronunciation, with all due respect.
Yeah.
And I somehow bullshitted my way to the top of the class. So when I'm at this tribunal to try and force me to get my hair cut, once again, it's like, well, is there anything wrong with my achievements? What's my attendance record like? But your hair's a danger. And I just said, okay, I'll wear a hairnet. And they couldn't believe that someone would do such a thing. What are you laughing at?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you were going against popular kind of culture at the time, which was probably, the short-haired, clean-cut look coming out of World War II. And
precisely, Rory, and I don't blame any of them. It was just, mine was a generation of huge social upheaval.
Yeah.
And one of the things was, okay, we're not going to get a haircut like Dad, which was the short back and sides. You're right. World War II, but it had been like that forever.
Yes.
Not forever, but, for the last 2 or 3 generations.
Yep.
And I was just taking it back to King Charles on the throne of England, or Jesus Christ or something like that.
Well, you're still upholding that look. So
yeah, this is my I don't know. As you know, my darling Kathy died at the beginning of this year, and I just haven't shaved since. It's not any kind of crusade or anything. It's just sheer laziness. I don't have to be appealing or polite to anyone.
It actually suits you. It's like talking to a wizard. No, great beard. And how did you find being that person, kind of that rebel in such a small town? What were the dynamics for you on a daily basis? What sort
It
of?
was very violent,
Mm.
and not that I'm a fighter, Rory. That's you. That's you. You're the
Yes.
martial arts expert. But the safety in numbers, and there was this. It was a. We were just teenagers looking at magazines, the music we liked, bands like the Rolling Stones and so on. They grew their hair long. They were doing the same thing in England, and we were emulating that in New Zealand. Now, it was a big beer drinking, rugby playing, farmer boy, tough guy place.
Mm.
But we were from that same background. Like there was half a dozen of us,
Yep.
or maybe 12 of us, and five of us formed a band. And so all the little outcasts, there was the guys who rode beautiful Triumph motorbikes. They had a club called the Antarctic Angels, and there was only about 10 of them. And all these little outcasts, there was safety in numbers.
Yeah.
And what really pissed the big farmer boys and the local police force and everyone off, I mean, I got busted by the local copper there who also happened to be an All Black. I don't mind calling his name because it's, in fact, his name was Frank Oliver. He's now deceased, so his family
Yep.
can sue if they like. But anyway, my mate Barry out of the band and I got busted by him once for obstructing the footpath because we were just strolling casually down the street, stone cold sober. And he says, if you're going to look like Red Indians, you're going to walk in single file like him.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah.
So we stood up to that.
Mm.
And I copped a few fat lips and a few black eyes, and everyone else did too. But it didn't hurt us.
Mm. Mm.
And this was in the big city of 52,000, but they forgot to realise that people like me came from the hill country, from the farming stock, and they were nothing. They were no
Yeah.
threat. I knew
Yeah.
where I was going and what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was probably a bit smart-mouthed about it, but there was no guns, there was no knives, and I emphasise it was a beer swilling, whiskey swilling culture. There was no drugs. There
Yeah.
was you weren't likely to get knifed or anything like that.
Mm. Yeah.
So
So, that period of your transition from what you call sort of the hills, you were living up in a rural area on a farm in your earlier childhood, and then you transitioned down to the.
yeah, I only moved to the city when I went to high school.
Yeah. Yep.
Because mother just thought it would be better for us once again for my brother and I.
Mm.
And once again, we ran into a bit of fun stuff there. Like there was a thing in Southland, the big city slickers. Like we thought we were in New York or London or something, 50,000 people. But they looked down on us kids and they called us hayseeds, which I guess was their equivalent of hillbilly.
Yep.
I was very offended by it.
Yep.
I thought, what's an effing hayseed? And my brother, who was always intellectually a lot smarter than me, said, don't worry about it. He used to call me Little Hodgie. We'll show them. I said, how are we going to do that? And he said, you're going to be first in your class this year. And I said, how am I going to do that? And he said, I'm going to be your tutor. He
Wow.
was. And I still have that frame. Mother put it in a frame. It's still on my wall at home. That's in the wall of shit for you to inherit or throw to the tip.
Speaking of little framed things, you were telling me an interesting story offline about how your mother took you to see a very popular band at one stage, and there may be a framed photo of an occasion. Was it back in the 60s?
Yeah. Well, I'd always loved music. It was old rock and roll, country music, all the Irish music of my uncles. My grandfather on mum's side was a multi-instrumentalist, and this is pre-electricity, and he supposedly would come in from the fields every day, pull the fiddle down, fiddle, play the banjo, and he passed that on to his sons, and were sitting around as a kid watching that,
Yeah.
you know, and we did a thing called the rounds, which when I went to Ireland, I saw. I'm one of 40 first cousins. We bred like rabbits. It was very cold down there. There was only one way to keep warm, obviously. And being Catholic, there was no birth control. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, yeah, this band called the Rolling Stones come along, and there was this wailing harmonica, and it was bluesy music, unlike anything I'd ever heard. And as a 13-year-old or whatever, I just went, I want to do that. Somehow I was able to emulate it. And there was an ad on the radio when they were coming in 1964. And the radio announcer says, the Rolling Stones are arriving today for a one-off concert in Invercargill Civic Theatre. Go out to the airport Monday morning, 9 o'clock, and meet them. So I just said to Mother again, I'm not going to school today. I'm going out to meet the Stones. He said, well, that's not going to be happening. And I said, yes, it is. Stones. So once again, we came to our usual compromise. She said, okay, I'll get you a taxi. I'll take you out there. You will be in your school uniform, and I'll drop you off at school on my way back home. I mean, she's something else, that lady, when you think of it.
That's amazing. Yep.
Like, she just knew me. She just knew if she said an outright no, I'd just go. I'd go to school and just walk out, go on the front gate and walk out the back. She just knew. And so we went out there, and we get out to the airport, and unbelievable, the Rolling Stones, still one of the biggest draw cards in the world at the age of 80, the surviving members, and one of my great musical inspirations. I arrive out there with my mother, and shame and horror and short pants, Marist Brothers high school uniform on. And there they are. They're getting off the plane, and I look around. There's no one there to meet them except Mum and I.
That's amazing. That really is.
And so I'm cowering in the corner, not wanting to be seen, A, in my school uniform, and B, with my mother, because I want to be cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And so she waddles over, all 5 foot of her. She was a very short lady.
Yeah.
5 foot and flaming red hair, and she's going, Mick, Keith, over here. He's dragged me out here. And now he won't even come and speak to you. Drives us the whole family mad, playing along on that bloody harmonica every night, trying to sound like you. And they go, where is he? And they're all chatting away to Mum, and they follow her over, this little 5 foot tall. Now, if we'd been in a major international city, that would never have happened.
No.
So I had this magazine photograph. They got it signed, and it was quite an incredible experience, and everyone knew about it. And the NZBC, the equivalent of the ABC here, every year on the decade, the 10th, they've just had the 60th anniversary of that concert and that time.
Mm.
So I did an interview this February on radio from here, and it was broadcast. Everyone heard it. And a couple of months ago, I get a phone call from some government department of museums in Wellington, New Zealand. They'd heard my interview on the NZBC, and I said, that happens every decade. You know, I've been doing it every year since 1970, 1980, whatever.
Yeah.
84. 5 was the year. That's right. It was 65. And they said, well, the Southland Museum's been pulled down, and we're building a new one. And we heard the story, and we're going to have Mick Jagger had signed the Civic Theatre's wall. And when they were renovating, they found his signature in big bold letters on the wall. So they've removed that plaster. They're going to have a photograph from the newspaper and an interactive thing where they push a button and hear the interview of me relaying this article. And anyone can go online now and hit Dave Hogan, Unknown Blues, Rolling Stones, and Invercargill. It'll lead you to the link. It's still up there. You can listen to it. Excellent. But they're going to put this in the museum. And as you know, I'm looking at changing many things in my life, cleaning up. And I looked at this frame photograph, and I thought, where are you going to go? This is only beginning of this year when Kathy died. And when they did that, they rang me and said, would you agree, and we sent a contract, we can put this interview up and people can push the button and hear a live account, because they asked me about the concert and all that stuff as well. I said, yeah, I'll agree to that. Certainly, no problem. It's a Southland story. And I said, but I've got something that you may want to put in the museum. And ah, I said, what's that? I said, I've got the picture framed that used to be on the inside of my lift up desk at school. It's a bit tattered and torn. It's a bit faded because it was just in a biro. I would like to donate that to the Southland Museum. And they can't believe it.
That's very generous and quite amazing. I've always said that you belong in a museum. So to have,
well, I've now become a museum relic. I've in my musical adventures, I've reached the stage of delinquent reviews that say he sings like he's got a mouthful of broken glass. We used to play the country dances and Gore and Tuatapiri and all those places in South, and they'd throw copper pennies at us, and I'd, boo, you can't sing, you can't do this, and I'd throw the mic out at the audience and say, do better, expletive.
Yeah, well,
show me how good you are.
Well, you've shown everyone how good you are. I've mentioned part one of our chat, the last chat that we had, mentioned about you being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that's really sticking it to them, Dad.
Played in Bluff and played in Berlin. Now, not only that, I get a call from Invercargill this week. There's a young guy down there, Lockie Hayes, who's an amazing harmonica player. His father is a multi-instrumentalist who played in the pickup band I was back in every year when I go back leading up to that Hall of Fame thing. He's got a new album out called Sub-Satellite. Track 2 on it is a track called Foot Stomp and Boogie, and he has put in song the story of my very first gig.
Ah, interesting. There you go.
So I've gone from how do we get rid of this person to veteran to legendary museum relic, now commemorated in song. And I love it. It's come out of Invercargill.
It's so good.
And I still haven't made any money, but hell, what a ride.
You've had a good time. That's great.
I've got a gig tomorrow afternoon at the Esplanade Hotel in St Kilda.
Still kicking along. That's great. So
which is spitting distance from where we lived when you were born.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah.
Anyway, that's nothing to do with. There's a little thing to do with newspapers there. When my band, The Unknown Blues, got going, I was well and truly entrenched in my apprenticeship. And every weekend, there was a sporting thing came out Saturday nights or something, and there was an entertainment section. And the journalists there got to know I was in this infamous band, and just because of how we looked and the mayhem that followed us everywhere,
yeah,
all the social misfits would gather at our dances. And so they'd say, what are you doing this weekend, Dave? And I'd tell them, so we got all these photographs, all this free advertising that money couldn't buy. That contributed to our notoriety. And all these other conservative bands in their suits and ties and perfect harmonies and everything, they were really pissed off and saying, yeah, they hated us because we were getting all the publicity. But I was working at the source of it, and it was just... It wasn't exactly corrupt. It was just them coming down and asking me what I was doing this week. I was playing Dunedin, playing Queenstown, playing Friday night in this hall, Sunday afternoon in that hall, and they'd write it all down, and there's photographs down there, and just I learnt the art of be nice to people, make sure they spell your name right, and the press has a lot of power.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure it does, and you can see that playing out currently.
No, but I mean, just in those times, because there was no internet, and it cost a fortune to place ads. A little classified ad would cost a lot of money, just about all your words. But working in that place and just being friendly to the guys who ran the information section, and I got on great with them. We'd have a beer after work and all that. I just had to chat like we are now, and we had a built-in publicity department.
That's perfect. What a good setup. So it's now a nice time to swerve back into the truth, because I think the truth is almost stranger than fiction. And a nice segue is this idea of classifieds and how people used to pay for them. And maybe that's a good point to kick off back into...
You haven't recorded this before?
we started, and we talked about the office space and how we would have certain people coming into that office space to pay for their few lines in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
newspaper.
sure.
Yeah,
But I will do that. But before that, a little disclaimer. I worked at Truth right at the end of the newspaper. It had been going, and there's a book out there by a former editor called Adrian Tame, all about it. Now, that was an era I didn't even meet Adrian until later. What I'm talking about is after him.
Yep.
So people like he could look at what I'm saying about Truth and say, that's a load of crap. That didn't happen when I was there. No, it didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what was going on when you were there didn't happen. I wasn't there either, sort of.
Yes, yeah, yep.
So anyway, there was a premier in Victoria here who was disliked for a number of reasons we don't need to go into, but very forward thinking. He introduced laws which allowed, for the very first time, against all the Liquor Commission and everything, BYO drinks to restaurants. It opened up the whole dining out industry. That was a huge success. None of the pubs went bankrupt like they said they would. COVID would do that to them 50 years later. And restriction in numbers. But he opened up the restaurant trade, and how Melbourne has a great dining out, as you know, restaurant. But BYO had a lot to do with that. Now, after he got that going, Kane had another thought bubble. The oldest profession in the world here is everywhere. We bust them every week. They're run by pretty organised criminal elements. If we legitimise the sex industry, make it legal, enforce protected sex, so sexually transmitted diseases are minimalised, keeping people out of hospitals, away from doctors and all of that, and we tax them, this could be a good move. And everyone's going, shock, horror, shock, horror. So Truth, when that got up and going and was very successful, the editor of Truth at the time, Owen Thompson, he came up with a brainwave. He employed a whole lot of excessive advertising staff and sent them out to every knock shop, for want of a better term. That's a brothel to you.
Yes.
Who are a bit younger than I.
No, I'm familiar with it.
In Melbourne, and every strip joint and everything, and said, we will take your ads, but they will be strictly cash. No fly-by-nighters, no checks, no credit. This is, and this is pre, cards and all that stuff. So a lot of the people who ran these places worked them. So we had Mistress L, the dominatrix, coming up with her 2 Great Danes and her 7-inch high heels. I'd like to put my ad in today, boys. And out would come a roll of $50 notes. There was just cash all over the place. And it was a booming business.
Yes.
And it was very smart business, because that, obviously, they don't call it the world's oldest profession. I mean, you go back to the Bible, there's a character in that called Mary Magdalene. In today's parlance, she'd be termed a working girl.
Yeah.
She's in the Bible.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation that I'd like to get into one day.
How many hookers I've shared houses with in the rock and roll days? Quite a few, actually.
We'll keep this as G-rated as we can, but
anyway, that was a smart move. But because of the cash flow and that led to a lot of the anarchy and that in the office. Led to the there was only one state in Victoria, where I might have touched on it last time, where pornographic VCR videos were legal. Truth took all their ads, so they're all arriving in the office for review. So there was a big horse racing thing, which was legal. And Owen's attitude was, well, we got the best form guide in Australia. We'll tell them what the winners are. And now we've got ads to show them where they can go and spend their winnings before they go home to the missus. It was pretty out there.
So I'm getting this picture of this workplace where there's a desk where people are wandering in from the street and just handing over cash for a few lines in the newspaper. And this desk is filling up with cash as the day goes on. And then you've got another... It wasn't just
desks, it was filing cabinets.
Filing cabinets.
Full of it everywhere. Of course, a lot of it went to the bank, but a lot of it went on the day-to-day running of the business.
So you've got these filing cabinets filling up with money, and then in another corner of this office space, there's pornography being reviewed, and
Yeah. And then there's the football writers and the racing writers, and it was like never the twain shall meet. It was just all thrown into the melting pot. And
so
also in the newspaper industry, it was quite highfalutin. Most other places I worked in, very respectable. The top floor was journalists, and they did not speak to the common workers like me. This started happening in the 60s in New Zealand, where the journos had come down because I was good fodder for them,
yeah,
what I was up to.
yep,
But at truth, everyone just mixed and mingled. There was no class distinction.
yeah,
And even while I did my apprenticeship as a compositor, which also was called a hand typographer in the old days of lead type, pre-computers. And it was known as the gentleman's trade because you had to be literate and educated. And it was the only apprenticeship in Victorian England, or pre-then, where the compositors were allowed to wear a sword and a scabbard,
right.
because it was the gentleman's trade, and it was a perfect place for your father to be.
That is perfect. Yes.
Look at me. So, but anyway, the journalists and the tradespeople all mingled as one. It was one big team. You had to be in at a certain time. There was publication days, a couple of days a week. The hours were extended if there was a big story or a big run, or a lunchtime got extended. You had to go sit back and make up your time, but the boss would go to one of these cupboards of cash and bring in pizzas and a slab of beer and chuck it on, and said, we better get the day's work done before you can go home. But nobody complained. I looked forward to going to work. I met some lifelong friends. It was great.
It sounds like an idyllic time, just that period where workplaces didn't have all of the rules and regulations and policies because common sense prevailed,
Yeah,
and it
well,
just gave
the others did have that, like
yeah,
the clock on, clock off.
mm,
But this place was, let's just say, it was extremely organised chaos and anarchy, and everyone was. Newspaper people are renowned for working odd hours, shift work, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, for example, I worked at The Age. I call that once great newspaper. It's worth wrapping up my cat litter in now. Like every other printed media, people think the print media is, the sales are just dead compared to what they were. They were
yeah,
once very powerful. And all the local pollies and that saying they print this in the press, they don't realise that people don't actually read it.
mm,
There's generations out there that don't buy a newspaper and wouldn't know where it was, whereas people would buy it for the sporting content, the political commentary, the world events, the shipping news, all kinds of things. It was, when
yeah.
people first became literate, it was quite an amazing, it's what the internet is now.
Yes, yeah, and I think though, in our modern time, people's phones give them information that is very siloed. They don't necessarily get exposed to all of those other world sort of geopolitical type
Yeah,
issues, or to business activities or other things. They're kind of just seeing this one-dimensional aspect of the things that they like on their devices rather than a broad picture of
yeah.
what's going
But
on in the world.
it was also, as you know, Rory, I have an extremely wide circle of friends
Mm,
that I've met mainly through music, because people come to gigs and come up. So I say, you seem like an interesting chap, in an accent like that. And he might be a history professor at one of the universities in 1980 or something. So I've got
yes.
to meet others, doctors, lawyers, pollies. They've all been through having a beer at the pub and listening to the music and coming up for a chat. And I've found them interesting and they me. But this guy I knew was an English history professor at one of the major unis here. And he said to me, newspapers, always been a load of crap, a load of bollocks, old boy. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, whoever was the king or the government of the time, they would like a certain view. So we go back in museums and that, and historians, and we look at the newspapers. He said, you want to know Victorian England? Don't read the newspapers of the time. Get a jolly good Charles Dickens book. That'll give you the reality. And this is coming from someone who's educated in that area, nothing to do with truth. And that's given me a pretty wide outlook on the whole media thing. So going to truth, it was the Wild West, but it was the last bastion of it. And
Yes.
whenever
Yep.
they printed a headline, like have we touched on the one where the former Liberal leader Billy Snedden died?
No.
Okay, we'll get to that. But before that, working in New Zealand, there was once a prime minister there called, his name was Muldoon, affectionately known as Piggy Muldoon.
Yes.
He was very successful, long serving, and Menzies kind of equivalent of person here. When I was working at the Christchurch Press, we're up there one night on the night shift. This story come through. There'd been a student protest in Dunedin. Someone had broken through security and had dropped Piggy with a 4x2 across the shoulders.
Oh.
Real bad.
Mm.
Could have killed him. But of course, there was photographs. It was everything. The whole page that this is lead type pre-computer, ready to roll. I was reasonably skilled, so I was on the front page because I could do my job and do it quickly, because my ambition was a bit like school. Go and get the job done, get the hell out of there and get down to the media club and have a couple of beers before I got home.
Priorities.
Yeah. So I was quite good at what I did. I'm
Yep.
on the front page, and all of a sudden all the suits come in, followed by these other people who turned out to be the New Zealand equivalent of the federal police. You cannot run the story. Our national security cannot be seen to be that lax.
Mm.
So they destroyed all the photographs. It was hot lead type. They stood there while I got what they called the gullies of type and tipped them into the melting pot, because they would remelt the lead and reuse it every day
Yeah.
for casting the stories. And that was my first real hands-on experience of censorship.
Mm.
And
Yep.
it wasn't particularly bad. And I think that in retrospect, from my old age, so to speak, or I refuse to acknowledge that too much, my experience, put it that way, it wouldn't have been a good look to have that all over every newspaper in the country, whether you like the guy or not.
Yeah, and it
It would
comes
have
back to
created the thing, well, if they can get to him and do that, we can get to them or anyone and do something worse. So I see the side, it should have been printed, but I can also see the side where it should be curtailed a bit.
Yeah, and I think I see the side that says we may never know the truth about anything because of those sort of things that happen. So it's a very interesting dynamic that's occurring there, and I can see it for all sides. I understand reasoning of all
Same
things.
here, Rory. So do
Yeah.
I.
So it's just, and that's why I find these reflections on your time at the truth so interesting and tantalizing, because it's playing in that space of deciding what people can and can't learn.
Yeah.
The government has something to do with that. News corporations have something to do with that.
Well, word probably got out to them that the Christchurch Press were going to run this story, and they had photographs.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of student unrest at that time, remember, primarily instigated by the Vietnam War.
Mm.
It was very divisive. It was the first television war. It was the first really heavily covered war. And parents, grandparents had been through World War I, World War II. The generation I was a teenager in said, no, we don't like this.
Mm.
Why are we going fighting another war on the other side of the world with something? No.
Mm.
Sort of thing. No, just saying no for whatever reason.
Mm.
Now, that was very divisive as well.
Yeah.
But it was okay. It was good for freedom of thought.
Yes. Yeah.
And I marched in the first two moratoriums here in Australia against the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
I now am at the stage, I have done more Vietnam vets charity gigs. I do at least one a year for the guys who are my age. Now, I do not have a beef with them. They were soldiers doing a job. At the time, I was opposed to the people who were sending them there.
Mm.
A lot of them have become friends, and they go, oh, who are we going to have on the bill for the fundraiser this year because someone needs a lung transplant, or, his missus has finally left him. Those guys are troubled, and they're my age.
Yeah.
So I marched against the war, and now I'm their greatest charity fundraiser in the rock and roll See, not the greatest, but I'm one of the go-to guys, and my bands are always first. We always put our hands up and work that for them.
And that's a real reflection of you, Dad. You've always had that very caring spirit, and you always had the best of intentions for everyone. And so, even though it seems like you're at the opposite ends of a spectrum from that time to this, you've actually just had their best intentions in your heart. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
and
great thing.
I think, sorry, Ward, to butt in, it's like we must have the courage of our convictions. We must speak up.
Yes.
And when I say we, I mean the whole of the human race,
Mm,
wherever we are fortunate or unfortunate enough to be born.
mm,
Now, I had a lovely young girlfriend in Dunedin in the early days in the 60s. Her dad was another university lecturer, and she had a year in California. This is about 68 or something.
yeah.
She came back and told me all about the Vietnam protests there, and they were just starting in New Zealand. So by talking to her and her American experience and all that, and that gave me a lot of thinking and conversation that I would never have had in Invercargill. It
Mm,
just wasn't mentioned. But going up there a bit further north in New Zealand, it all was. And when I came here, it was running rampant.
yep. Yep. So, circling back around, you mentioned Snedden, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So
So,
really,
I'm keen to kind of uh, follow you down this track, and it's probably going to lead us up towards the end of this part. So we're up to part 2 of our chat about the truth. So I think this story is a nice way to sort of round up part 2 of our chat, because it might help us to dive a little bit deeper into part 3.
okay. Snedden was the leader of the opposition. He held many roles, Victorian politician, opposition being coalition at the time. He was quite a lad, probably not unlikable, even though I was on the other team. So we'll go there. Anyway, Billy's body was found um, after a night of excess in a reasonably seedy motel wearing nothing but a loaded condom. Put it that way.
Mm,
Now, of course, everyone's got to know he wasn't in power, but he was a prominent member of the party. And everyone's going, da, da, da. So, of course, in truth, there was nothing that couldn't be reported on that was newsworthy. But Owen wanted to grab all the attention and get the sales and going, we got to get a headline. And a very dear friend of mine, a journalist who I still communicate with on a regular basis, he was the sub-editor there. He said, well, how about Billy comes and Billy goes? And no one goes, no. A bit metaphysical, Ken. The masses won't get it. He says, how about we go the real Ockaway? His headline that week was Sir Billy dies on the job. Every great Australian's dream, death.
oh dear.
So
You could
that was
probably still
printed
go
with the
and
story with the unknown companion who'd obviously fled the scene knowing who she was with. And well, we're assuming it was a she,
Yes.
Anyway, every blah, blah, blah stuck up newspaper shockingly thought, look what Truth has done. And they reprinted the front page on their own front pages.
Really? So it just got blown up even more.
It just got blown up even more. Owen's rubbing his hands together. We went into about 3 or 4 print runs. Absolutely cleaned up. And all the puritanical press radio stations that were so anti-truth had to quote that headline.
Wow. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And let's just say as a female wife of another former prime minister, and this Thompson, the editor, he had a little black book with all this. He was from good old money. I've told you that earlier.
Yeah.
He knew contacts on everyone. He gets the camp. his contact book out, and he gets the young cadet junior journalist to ring up this wife of a former prime minister, and just say, you didn't happen to be with Billy the night he carked it, did you? Were you? And of course, there was this ring of expletives, and the phone was hung up. So the headline the next day was so and so questioned on whereabouts the night Snedden died.
That's nasty, isn't it? It's so nasty.
It's evil, it's mean, and it's nasty, but nobody could get busted. Didn't say questioned by whom.
No.
Because they didn't give them enough time to identify themselves.
It's an accurate statement. Yeah, it's an accurate statement.
There was witnesses standing around that desk listening to that phone call, knowing that the question had been asked.
Yes, it's an accurate statement. How interesting, and
I'm sure things like that still go on, and
of course it does. And
people are all, you know, I'm not jaded by it, but let's just say I'm wary of it.
Yes.
I don't even like the word cynical that much, although I can be extremely. But you're just going, oh yeah, whatever they're saying here. It's like the current thing in the US about the Edelstein tapes.
Yeah, well,
you know, how much truth and how many lies are in that, and who's using what for their own gains.
Well, it's interesting that you should bring that up, because I just received a text message from the son, Caleb, and I'm going to be having
my dearly loved grandson.
Yes, yep. Caleb's going to be having another chat with me about the state soon, but I think we'll be doing it today actually. But he's texted me about the Epstein files, so I'm sure we're going to deep dive into a bit of discussion around that.
Just as well, Caleb, and I love the man dearly, but just as well we weren't teenagers at the same time.
Oh, well, we'll just have to find that missing, 62 seconds of video, and I think we will know the truth. But that's a conversation that I'll have with Caleb.
You have that with Caleb.
Yeah.
Always lovely to talk to you, Rory. And look, as I said to you in my disclaimer, other people have their own versions of the truth. This isn't finished yet. It came to a very sad and ugly end. And I wouldn't mind addressing that, but I'm only talking about my time and my experience there. Some stories I witnessed. Others I was told by people who were there when I was out of the room.
Yes, yeah.
So we must, stories can be enhanced. They're all based on the truth.
They are, aren't they? Whose version? That's the question. So on that note, Dad, great to see you. Love you. It was a great chat.
Love you too, Rory.
And,
thanks for this opportunity, son.
It's good fun.
If it goes out in public, good God. But even if it's just for your archives, it's great. I love it. Cheers.
Take care.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. See ya.
Bye-bye. You hang up, man.